June 4th for her checkup once a year. He's hicking every day. You know, he's already wringing his hands. He comes home in a bad mood, you know, and he's getting up for a 7-hour nightmare drive to Memphis where he smokes like 50, you know, cigarettes. And there's Emily in the car. I get mad, and then he says, well, he needs it for his nerves, so Mother says, well, I'll just give him Valium. Thank God for mothers.
That's
you
right,
know?
that's true. Just knock the man out and drive himself, Barbara.
Exactly.
To hell with that.
I said seriously that he could drive, I'd fly. I'd meet him there, and he'd, you know, he'd be real happy. Then he could smoke and do whatever he had to do by himself. But he says, no, we're going to have a good time. I promise. I won't be nervous. And he's hicking.
He hiccups?
He hiccups when
he
he gets
know what you meant.
nervous. Yeah, oh, he hicks. I'm sorry, I let everybody. He hiccups really bad when he gets nervous. And so
Oh my God, so he's hiccuping.
He's hiccuping now. And my mother, she always likes to slip him a little few drugs. Then I steal them too, you know, why not?
Yeah, that's right. If you got a good pusher.
Yeah.
My mother used to be the pusher of amphetamines before we knew about amphetamines to my brothers. Like when the kids wanted to stay up when my brothers were in college, they come to my mother. Let's not even think about it.
I
my
know.
Mama gives him. And my
mom busted for
my father would say, God knows when Julia will be back. She's taking one of those diet pills. I thought, oh my God. So that was
baby, talk, I can chew gum and walk.
Diet pill. I
Oh,
mean, that's what's
Mary
so frightening,
Lee.
you know, just
Yeah.
my mother up. We told her last night she's so goofy that she could go into Alzheimer's or senility and we won't know the difference. She's been nutty all her life. I said, the good news is, Mom, one, you won't know it because you can't remember.
You can't.
We won't notice.
So she'll just slip into it and that'll be it, right?
That'll be it, that's right. We won't know. I'm sorry, you're going to be serious.
I know.
Having a good time. I'm letting her eyes get better.
I know.
I'm having a hard time with her eyes.
Is it better now?
I
didn't notice it looked
Okay.
bad.
He's our technical expert, and do you need to test her?
Everything's fine.
Oh, we're talking so much into this microphone. Poor guy's probably deaf.
I know.
I've been screaming into it. And then. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you have any? I'm gonna let. Do you want to do some of this, or you want me to just go ahead and talk?
Talk.
Oh, okay.
You do best.
No, it's what I like best.
Thank you.
Did you have any ideas of what you wanted to do, or?
Well, you know, just to soon talk about what cancer in a child does to a family. Because, you know, everyone knows, well, you know, that I'll mention that, you know, I think that the cancer came from environment and that there are a lot of cancer, you know, clusters in Louisiana, things like that. But again, to me, the thing with the most impact is the fact of what you live through when you have a child with cancer.
So maybe we ought to start out like, I don't know anything about you. So tell me, as another mom, what you've been through with your little Emily. The story of what's happened to you a little bit, and then we'll kind of...
Okay. I'm trying to wipe that smile. Oh, no.
No. Just yourself, though. Your beautiful self.
Oh, thank you. So, well, I think the hardest part of having a child with cancer is the fact that when you realize that you may lose this child, it's not just part of you and part of your life, but it's all of your dreams too that you lose. Because the hardest thing my husband had to handle was a ridiculous thing. My baby was 6 months when she had cancer diagnosed. And the hardest thing for him to handle was, will I ever walk her down the aisle? And it's so far into the future, but it's a dream that you might never see come true. It's what we wish for our children, what we want for our children is their dreams in the future. And that's what's taken away from us. Baby, and in 3 weeks she was diagnosed with seizures, and we had her examined from the head up. There was no indication of anything but just seizures, and they had no cause, put on medication, and she was diagnosed later as being slow because her motor skills were not developing. She wasn't able to sit up and hold up her head, and they thought she might have some spinal trouble. Through this time, I noticed on her back that there was next to her spine a lump that was there, As she got bigger, I noticed it got bigger. So at 6 months, she was not sitting up, and I was concerned. The doctor said it may be scoliosis. So after x-rays, it was not scoliosis, but a mass. And I was in the hospital with her by myself. We had gone. Simply, I was upset the fact it could be scoliosis. And when the x-ray technician said, "I want you to see this," he showed me this huge mass in my baby. And I thought, well, she's gonna die. That was my first thought. That I looked at her and I thought, I'm never gonna raise this child. So I went home, and it was probably one of the hardest things I had to do, was to tell my family what I had found out. And that was my husband and my 14-year-old son and my mother and my father and all my in-laws. Very close family. And when we said mass, everyone thought to themselves cancer, but no, not cancer. But she was diagnosed with cancer, and we found out it was probably the biggest split that I've ever felt in my family. That everyone had such loss of control over their emotions, over this beautiful baby being diagnosed with cancer. And of course, cancer is a death sentence to me when you hear the word. So we went to our pediatrician, and she suggested that we go to St. Jude's Hospital in Memphis for treatment. And she had a surgery here, her first abdominal surgery, when she was 6 months old. And I held her, and they said, we're here now, we're going to take her away from you. And I couldn't let her go. I wouldn't let her go. So they let me carry her to the surgery, and finally, at very last, they made me let her go. And it was very hard on me and my whole family, because we all not only suffered, but we watched each other suffer as well. She had the surgery, of course, the tubes and all the horrors that you see from this. It was a very, very hard thing to look at, have to deal with. I never left her. No one in the family ever. Was she ever alone? That she would be, uncomfortable, and we wouldn't be there to tend to her needs. I didn't know how long I'd have her. When we went to St. Jude, they said that there was a good chance that because of her age, they could save her. So after 2 more surgeries, the second abdominal, and she took chemotherapy first time, and then she had a second surgery. The mass was still there. The mass was metastasized, attached to her kidney, neuroblastoma, which is 1 in 100,000 children. It was attached to her kidney, and metastasized to the size of a large grapefruit. It was so far into the abdomen that it couldn't be felt in the abdomen, but that's what was protruding out of the spine, was the mass pushing her organs and her diaphragm all out of the way. She had her first surgery after a course of chemotherapy, and they said that she would need another course of chemotherapy. There was still more, plus there was a mass behind her heart. And we started the chemotherapy with children and St. Jude and in Baton Rouge who had the same disease as Emily. And as we went along, we were losing them all the time. And Emily just kept going through. And every time we'd go and we'd hear that a little child that we'd sat next to for 3 hours in the medicine room while Emily had chemo had died, it was almost like we had lost a little part of Emily, or really a little part of ourselves. And that's the horror of the cancer in children, is that your suffering is so great, and there's not much that you can do except what you have to do. But after her second course of chemotherapy and her third operation, they cut from her nipple all the way to her backbone and then up her backbone. They dislocated her shoulder, collapsed her lung, and expanded her ribs. Went in behind her heart and took out the last tumor. And they closed her up, and she had the drain tube and everything. And then that's when she was diagnosed after a year, over a year, as being 90% cancer-free. But we had to go back every month. The little girl that we had gone through treatment with, like Emily, was diagnosed as cancer-free about the same time. She went back after a month, and at that time she had over 40 brain tumors in her brain, or that 40 that they could count. So we had to go and face the same thing with Emily. And what we did was, with our child, was we turned her over to someone and allowed them to put chemicals into her body that we would never dream, that would kill us if we ingested them, and I had to let them put these things into her veins, and I had to be there to watch it. One of the chemotherapies, it's antifreeze, one of the components of the chemotherapy. So to keep the other chemicals from crystallizing, they use the antifreeze. And I mean, you can imagine taking antifreeze and injecting that into your child, but that's what happened. And she withered, she was a thriving child who withered. And but fortunately, children do fight, and she fought, and we fought, and for her life, and she's 90% cured today. And she's a healthy 5.5-year-old little girl, but there's something in all of us that when we look at her, we always say, what's going to happen 5 years from now? When a normal child gets something, she had an infection in her lymph node behind her ear, and it swelled tremendously. Well, we saw it at night. We had to spend the whole night with worry and what is it? Is something come back? What happened? Went to the doctor, and she said it's a normal childhood infection in the lymph node. But for Emily, it's a red flag goes up right away. You immediately think, oh my God, because we don't know. No one in Emily's age group has ever survived to maturity. That's how new her treatment was. So they don't know what to expect.
So you always feel like you have this cloud.
It's a shadow of death that follows you, and you got to just kind of jump, keep ahead of it all the time.
Between you and Emily's future, and the dreams that you had for her.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I remember real distinctly, Barbara, is when you called us. You had read about the neuroblastomas in Morgan City, which is some of our family down there. And we began to ask you, did your husband work in a facility? Did you live next to a site? A lot of the questions that lots of our folks would say, yes, I live next to so-and-so or an industry, and you were saying, no. And I don't know if you remember what you told us, but you said, actually, I'm a little older mother, so I took extra care of myself. I ate fish every day.
Yes.
Because my husband, we cared, that the baby would be healthy. And then you told me that it came from Bayou near Morgan City.
Bayou Buff.
Bayou Buff, which is contaminated. Is that true?
Uh-huh.
And I want to ask you two questions, I guess, and take your time. Is one, did you see a lot of mothers there and families from Louisiana when you went to St. Jude's?
When I went to St. Jude's, that's what struck me first of all. There's so much waiting in between treatments and in between doctor's visits that you get to meet so many parents and children. That's why you become so attached to different people in the waiting rooms and the lobbies. And in talking to everyone, well, where are you from? Well, I'm from Louisiana. Well, God, I'm from Louisiana too. And where are you from? I'm from Louisiana. And my husband and I would just, every time we spoke to someone, we'd be, another one from Louisiana, my goodness. So I questioned the nursing staff. and they said that they felt that 40 to 50% of their patients are from Louisiana. And they would go so far as to say, what's going on down there? What's happening down there? What are y'all doing down there? And I said, well, I don't know. And then it put the question in my mind, what is happening? Because I met children parents of children, one little child had a cancer that was 1 in 48 million, and they were from Louisiana. And there are a lot of clusters, a lot of cancer clusters. Neuroblastoma, which is 1 in 100,000, in the Baton Rouge area, there's 6 kids or 7 kids. In Morgan City, there were so many in just a small area. And it's not just neuroblastoma, it's other cancers and then very rare types of cancers.
So is that what was the beginning that made you think about the environment around you?
I received a notice in the mail, and it was Eloise Wall sent it to me, I believe, stating that, because I'd spoken to her about my concern about the Morgan City area where my husband had fished. And Bayou Buff, a study was done in, Emily was born in 1986. It was done in 86 and published in 87. And it stated that at that time, Bayou Buff was 100 times more polluted than any body of water in the state. And I was shocked. I thought, well, wait a minute, I was taking good care of myself. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. Everything healthy that I could eat, I thought I was doing right for my baby. And then
and you were eating fish from this spot?
Yeah, and then my husband fished down there a lot, of course. There was a lot of fish. There was, they were biting and they were available, and it's Louisiana's a sportsman's paradise. So there, and several other areas that I've now found out that have been, the waters have been...
How did that make you feel, as a mother or as a citizen, that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we almost taking for granted that the water is clean? And that,
I felt like you're raped. I mean, I said, well, wait a minute. I was angry to begin with that Emily had cancer. It's part of my grieving process. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, who should I be angry at? I was angry at myself. And then I thought, no, I'm not to blame for this, this is something that I felt was chemically induced. That perhaps not, our tolerance to the chemicals in the air and in the water and things like that are different to what a growing fetus would be. And I thought, well, I've fished these waters for years. I've lived in Louisiana all my life. I've never had a fear of it, God, we swam in the water. We ate the fish out of the water. Everything in Louisiana. It was always, well, I guess we just took it for granted, because now I find out that what we've been so used to all our lives, we have to be very, very leery of. And I don't feel secure now before I eat anything, or I find out where the body of water is, and I'll check up and see how the level of pollution is. And for my daughter herself, I won't allow her to eat a lot of the seafoods, the bottom feeders, the catfish, unless it's pond raised, and the crabs and the crawfish and things like that, because I'm afraid. I don't know what she's going to be ingesting. And if she's already had this cancer, I don't know what to expect in the future.
So you feel you almost have to do the government's job. You have to be very aware.
I have to watch out of what my family does and what they eat and everything else. But it's made me environmentally wise as to how I spray my gardens, what I do to my...
Let's talk about that. How is this carried? You could never be the same.
No.
Just as what's happened to me. You're never the same, and you can't go back. How do you think this has changed your life?
Like I say, it's made me very environmentally aware, and it's made me frightened. My brother and his wife just had a baby. I'm frightened for other children born in Louisiana. I'm frightened that they look so healthy. Well, it's it's all very deceiving. You know, I don't know what lies in their future. My son was 14 years old at the time. What was to say that he wouldn't develop leukemia? That became my fear, you know. So I started becoming aware of my environment more. Things I say that I just took for granted. I began to look, you know, the smokestacks that, you know, just harmless steam that goes up on weekends that's not normally there. I became interested in finding out what was going on and who was dumping where and what.
So you felt like if the government perhaps hadn't told you about that water body, then maybe that steam that's coming out of that stack might not just be steam. And that we needed to
Exactly. When my eyes tear as I go across I-10 with my family, and my eyes tear and my nose gets clogged up or I get itchy, I mean, I'm not stupid. You know, I know what I feel, and I don't want anyone telling me it's something else, because even though I'm not a scientist, I am an intelligent person, and I know when I'm having an allergy reaction. And when I'm out of the area, I'm all right. And why some days do we have to have air quality that says stay indoors? You know, why should we have that? You know, why can't my little girl go outside and play all the time? You know, why should I have to worry that some days, and it's not on the weekends. They don't give air quality, not available on the weekends. Well, I'll just keep her in then, in the weekends, thank you, you know. But I've become, even with my gardens and how I fertilize and how we spray for bugs, we read up the products that I use in my home. I'm afraid, you know, this is our next generation. This is our future. And, you know, I'm watching these children die. I can't tell you how many parents have gone to the hospital to visit. And, you know, they're about to bury their child, and the child is going to die. And, oh, you know, what future do we have then? What legacy do we leave? You know, I mean, we cannot, and things are not so obvious as the Exxon Valdez or the Dow in India. You know, it just doesn't slap you in the face. Some of these things are insidious and they just sneak into our environment. I had no idea Bayou Buff. Well, it looked fine to me. It's the Bayou Buff in the area that I've been looking at for years. I mean, you know, it's like the back of your hand. Sure, I know which way to go down this bayou. It's all the same to me. But it's what's there that you don't see.
Underneath.
That you have to be frightened of.
Or have you had this that many of us have in the movement? How do you feel when they say it's your lifestyle or you're an hysterical housewife? And how can you possibly understand these technical issues? How do you feel when I've seen you testify and do a press conference? You're just absolutely inspirational.
Oh, geez, thank you.
It's true. But how do you feel when they want to take, say that you're an exception and not a marker of what's happening here, and it's the lifestyle and things like that? How does that make you feel?
Oh, that makes me furious. You know, as I said before, I am not a scientist. I do not have millions of dollars to invest in a scientific survey. I went to the Chemical Association survey of employees in the plants, and there's no indication that there is an excess amount of cancer. Lung cancer, yes, because Louisiana has the highest number of smokers. Fine. I mean, it's so nicely whitewashed. It's so nicely done, you know. And for years I've been swallowing all of this. Yes, that's fine. I understand. Yes, you wouldn't tell me that unless it was the truth. But I don't trust them anymore. You know, I don't trust them when they say, no, it's just, you know, you're a hysterical housewife. Well, probably I am. Yes, sometimes of the month I am probably hysterical. But I am an intelligent human being. I know what's going on. I may not be well versed in all the scientific ends of it, technological ends, but I know what my child went through. I stayed in the medicine room at St. Jude for 8 hours while they ran the medicine slow into my child. And I talked to other parents, and you know, it's where do you live? I live on the outskirts of town, and I live by a plant. Oh, I live by Rollins, and I live by this. now there's a pattern that develops. You know, what the Chemical Association doesn't want to do, I'm just a little voice. I'm just a mom. You know, I am really just,
Don't
you
say
know,
just a mom. That's
I'm
pretty
just,
powerful.
well, they do. They say, you're just a mom, and they smile at you so appeasingly. But, you know, I have a lot of clout. You know, I have the greatest ammunition against them in the world. My daughter bears all the scars of this. I nearly lost my daughter. You know, inside I have scars that will never heal. So they're not going to tell me that I am wrong. You know, that I am wrong. No, it's just an isolated. If I had been the second child in Baton Rouge with neuroblastoma, yes, I'd have said, well, I may be overreacting. But I am not overreacting when I find out how many children in the Baton Rouge area are cancer victims. And I'm not going to let them intimidate me and let them make me think that I'm crazy, because you know,
Silence is what they want, isn't it?
yeah, well, that's,
They want your silence. Too painful. If it feel that way, you can't be paper and made quiet.
no.
Your story that you carry with you, that you share with me and everyone so graciously, because some people experience these things. We talked about this and not able to share them.
Right.
It makes them become more closed. But you're a warrior, like lots of our
Well,
folks, and you
you-
have the courage to share that. And you're letting other people know what's happened to Emily could happen in their family.
Oh,
Is
just-
that how you feel?
oh.
Do you feel that?
Definitely. You know, I went before the legislature and I told them that her veins had all collapsed in her body after so many treatments. So they said, we're going to go now and we're going to run an 8-hour chemo into her head. So they tied a tourniquet around her little ball head. She wasn't even a year yet. And they turned it tight and all the little veins popped up. And they said, Mother, hold her down. And I laid across her and she screamed and she yelled, and they poked her head 3 or 4 times in her head trying to find a vein. I have to be there to witness this and to hear this and to suffer with my child. And I told her, I said, it will be all right, Emily. You'll be all right. You know, Mother will make it all right. But those words were for the time. Yes, I'll comfort you, I'll hold you, I'll make it better. But no, those words are forever. Those words say, I will make it better. I will make it better forever. You know, that there will be, it's taken on a different meaning. There will be no more like you, maybe. Maybe I'll stop 1 or 2 from happening like you. Or 1, you know, that's all. That would be wonderful. That's what those words meant. I realized that I will make it better. And I will try to make it better. To take and make it safer for your children, you know. But what does it cost? Well, it almost cost my daughter's life. You know, how could I say that? What is the price that I would put on my daughter? How much money would I give you for her life? Would there be anything?
There's no price.
There's
So
no
I thought about
price.
my son. You know, he's been exposed to more when you had to have all these x-rays and all these things that they did to him over a whole lifetime. And I do look at my son and wonder what this environment is doing to him inside his body and when it could accumulate and go off.
Yes.
It's like the children are little tiny time bombs, and every time he gets something, or he is much not as strong as his brother, you know, it's just like a knife in my gut, and I'm sure that's the same.
Oh, it is.
For you.
We experience all of our children's pains. We experience
no
all their
question.
joy. I mean, we run the whole emotion. And when they fall and they hurt their knee, how bad do we hurt?
Then when you have something like that, but you're like the instant where the break comes together and it makes something stronger. You're
Well,
stronger,
I
and that's
hope
beautiful.
so.
I want to ask you a few little questions, like what keeps you so committed to this when some people can just say, I've had enough. You know, I've given all I can emotionally. It's just enough to care for Emily, and I can't worry about those other people. What keeps you so committed?
Oh, but you know, you've got to worry about them. You know, I can say I've spent too much time seeing other children suffer. I just spent too much time watching that. I was Emily's surgery, her second surgery, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. My mother was with Emily, and I'd wandered off down the hall just for sanity to get a Coke downstairs. And as I was coming back, I met a nurse, and she had a small child, 5 years old, wrapped in a blanket, and it was dead in her arms. And she was crying, and I walked right into her. And when I looked at her, I thought, well, this is real. You know, this is so real. And I went back to the room. I couldn't even tell my mother what was wrong with me. I just picked my baby up out of the bed, and I just held her and held her. And this is what's kept me to be like this. The thoughts, the thoughts of all those little faces, so patient. They're a year and 2 years old. They give them the little pans. They get the chemotherapy. They throw up. They know what to do. They shouldn't know what to do. They should be out playing with dolls and Play-Doh and driving their parents crazy. They should be having a happy life. Instead, they're being stuck by needles. They're suffering. They're vomiting. They're pathetic little things, withered images of what they were. And you can't look at this all the time like I did and not realize that you can make a difference. You know, that's a parent saying, I'm just one person. I'll never make a difference. But you will. You don't have to open your mouth. Take your child with his bald head and with his scars and take a picture of your baby's grave and don't even open your mouth.
Yeah, let's look at those pictures of Emily.
Oh, okay.
Since that's what we were talking about. Yeah. So just a picture's worth 1,000 words. Maybe you can share those pictures with me. Tell me about Emily's picture.
Well, this is one, I guess. I don't even know if I have dates on some of these. I take too many pictures because
it's too painful.
Well, I do have some at home, but I didn't bring them. I have some of her sleeping, and she looks like she's dead. You know, that's how bad it is. And then some during her treatments when she was so gaunt and so yellow. And
you should have shared that, but that's fine. I'm happy with whatever you want.
You know, I put it away. It's a shame because sometimes I can see them and sometimes I can't. I felt today I just couldn't see them.
Sure.
So we brought the least of the evil. So here she is. She looks pretty good here. She's a regular, happy, smiling kid. She was born, I guess, she's about 9 months old here, or 11 months old,
and obviously she's under chemotherapy.
Yeah, and she's got chemo, and she's happy. She's a happy little frog, you know.
You can forget in between.
Yeah.
You can't forget.
Every time I picked her up and I looked at her and her scars, and I bathed her, I mean, you know, she's just, and I'd put on her. People know she was sick a lot of times. But we were isolated because of her chemotherapy. Low blood counts. We couldn't, oh, this is a good one. This is Easter, after she'd been diagnosed as cured. She's got no hair.
When I see this picture, I think of that story about the tourniquet around her head. That's so...
You do. She was about this age when she had it. Mm-hmm. You know, so you just can't imagine, you know, what it would be. You know.
All human.
And the veins are very small. And, of course, they tell you now, we're going to do this chemotherapy, and if the vein ruptures and it goes into her arm, her tissue, she will get radiation burn, and she will suffer a huge burn, and she may lose flesh and everything like that. It may do damage to the muscle and all. So you're sitting there holding her, and the whole time you're just praying to God that nothing happens to that vein. That all of a sudden there's nothing in the world more important than that vein. And I know that my priorities changed when she got sick.
You seem like a spiritual person. This probably isn't something Pat would made me be thinking about asking. But as someone who I feel I am too, do you feel that your spirituality helped you through this time? Like when you were holding your baby, and as I held, well, I couldn't even hold Michael. He could hold my finger, you know, and watching him suffer, and then when he had pneumonia when he got older, did your spirituality help give you strength?
It's what took me through. It's really what took me through. I had so many people praying for me, and I couldn't. The question that I had was, how can Emily live, and the same baby next to her, same age, not as bad? How can that baby die? And what is the difference? And I questioned God, not to why Emily had the cancer, but why she was living. Not that I wasn't happy, but what made the difference? And I realized that, as it said, you can bombard the gates of heaven with prayer, and the gates of heaven fly open, and that your prayers are heard. So I guess I had everyone praying. Everyone I met, I asked them to pray for Emily, and they prayed for Emily everywhere. And so, and not only for Emily, but for us, because my family was, my son being 14, a very hard time in his life, he was just devastated.
Some people don't think about that. One, I think about when my son was in the hospital, I would come and there'd be a baby missing, or if they moved Michael, I was sure he had died.
Yes.
Or the nurse wouldn't know where he was. Those kind of things that you just can't imagine how you feel when that happens. But some people don't think about this, do they? That when your baby has cancer, everyone in the family, even the grandparents, everyone around you is affected by this experience.
I don't think that will ever be the same. Never. That's what makes me angry. Not only did they nearly take my child from me, but they changed my whole life. My son will never be the same. I put him in therapy after it was over. Just recently, I went into therapy because even though I handle it, there are some things that still, I still feel such hurt and pain for, trying to release. I tended to mother my family as well as Emily, and spread myself very thin on that level because everyone hurt so bad. You know, my mother, she would run and we couldn't find her, you know. And my father-in-law, who never cries, he cried constantly. And my father-in-law would never hold Emily. He would never talk to her. He wouldn't look at her. And when it was over, he explained to me that he couldn't do it because he felt as if he got too close to her when she died, because he knew she would die, he wouldn't feel her loss so great.
Couldn't bear it. My husband at that time could not see my son at all.
Isn't that something?
Could not go. He went one time and he never went again. So I had to go alone.
Yeah.
You know, scrub up and wear the stuff and face out
That's
alone.
a hard thing to face alone.
Sure.
That's
sure,
a hard
but we
thing.
find it in the strength
you
somehow
do.
to do it. So back a little bit in sharing this story, and it's remarkable, and I can't thank you enough for being so open with us.
Happy to.
A couple of questions. Do you think organizations such as Lean are important in helping to protect those future generations? Do you think that we need the Leans or the nonprofit groups? In other words, you feel the government's doing okay, and we don't need that accountability there.
No,
how do you feel about that now that you've awakened like I had, and I thought I had clean air and clean land and clean water? I feel, because I grew up in New Orleans, and a lot of these things are ingested and are passed on in utero.
Yes.
That's basically, I had 2 very early babies, and my other son has a learning disability.
Well,
And,
yes.
so I feel that they're going to find that they're sort of the canaries in the cage.
Exactly.
So
I think
how do you feel about these organizations and what they're doing?
Well, you know, we have the legislature, and they say, well, now we're going to reduce emissions by 50% by so many years. Well, I said, okay, yeah, you're like an honest man to me, and I wouldn't buy a used car from you, right? But you look like an honest man to me. What we need is you are the watchdogs. You are the ones who keep track of them and make sure they toe the line. You know, it's like everything else in life, for sure. We start out good and we just drift over like that. But you all are the ones that keep them on track, that make sure when they make a promise that they're committed to that promise. You all are the ones who, for people like me, who don't have any idea where to begin and what to do, you all are the ones who can lead people like myself, you know, into a situation like the legislature. You know, how will I help? What will I do? Where will I begin? Well, I'll call Mary Lee and Lean, and they'll help me. And you did. And it's good to see so many of these organizations working in different parts of the state and working together and fighting for people, because we need a champion. You know, we have no one but ourselves, and I wouldn't know where to start. So you're like the champions that we have to depend on to fight our cause for us. And I thank God you all are here. I really do.
I thank God for you, Barbara.
Oh, well, listen, that's, you know, I'm glad to share, because like I say, I've got a loaded gun. I got a double barrel shotgun on them with Emily. You know, I got stories to tell them, make their hair curl. So every mom does. But, you know, the moms who have lost their children, I can't imagine what they'd have to say. So,
if you could talk to those moms that, the moms that have had this happen, who've given up, what would you tell them?
well, first of all, I'd say, look, you're just not one. You're not alone. You're just, you know, it's not hard. You know, you don't have to be articulate and educated and everything. You just have to speak from here. How do you feel? You know, what is in your heart? Just say that. That's the best thing that you can do. And if they just say that, if they cry, I'm not ashamed of my tears at all, because they washed me clean many times, and without my tears I would have probably exploded. So it's, you know, I tell them it's all right to cry. It's all right to run the gambit of emotions. You know, get hysterical and laugh and then cry hysterical. I'll cry with you. I have been there. You know, you're not alone. I understand. So if parents could just use what they have, you know, and sometimes you don't even have to speak, a picture. And that's it. Date of birth, date of death, and, you know, a picture of them when they started and right before they finished. That's it. That's all you need. You know, you don't have to open.
Speaks for itself.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's what is a picture's worth 1,000 words. So you don't have to open your mouth. So that's what, and I try to tell parents that some who have lost their children, they close in on themselves. And when you don't talk about it, it doesn't hurt. It always hurts. And, you know, when I talk about it, I feel better, you know, and I can share it with someone who understands. And even if they don't understand, I want to tell them about it so I could raise hearts on them so they can do something and make it a better world for our kids.
Well, Barbara, you're an inspiration, because some people, a lot of us always have something in our lives that are painful. But sometimes they do that. They close the door, but instead your heart just gets bigger.
Well, you got to. You, like I say, I got a double barrel shotgun, and
Yes. Pat, is there any other thing you'd like Barbara to share with us? Is there any question you'd like to ask her?
I think you did a wonderful job, Mary Lee.
Mary Lee
Barbara
did.
did the wonderful
Oh,
job.
Mary Lee kind of like, she lets her say, thank God you all are here, because, you know, it's like I'm a wandering soul lost in the desert, you know.
We all are. That's why together we can make a difference.
I
Is
think
that our
that's
message,
it.
do you think?
Oh,
I
definitely.
think that's what I'd like us to be able to share and let other people. You're a messenger. I feel I'm a messenger, Barbara,
You are.
out of this town, you know, other cities, and out of Louisiana, just as you are. And we need to keep being messengers. And for me to be able to carry your message with me when I can't always have you with me is powerful. And I hope through this medium,
Well, that
you know,
would
I
be
can
fine.
bring your voice to a lot of people who aren't aware,
Good.
who haven't been awakened yet of what's happening to us down here.
That sounds wonderful.
So you're just wonderful.
Anything I can do to help?
You did.
Okay.
Wonderful. $1 million worth of work.
Oh,